Grand slam for Masters!
It's time for Blessed to Play on EWTN Radio, uncovering the role that faith plays in the lives of sports professionals from around the country. And now, here's your host, Ron Meyer.
Fire, score! My guest today is Joe Patterson. He's the Vice President, Director of Athletics, and also the head coach at Ave Maria University, coaching the Gyrenes. He also has a course out titled Athletics and the Virtues. We're going to be talking about that, but I'd like to welcome a returning guest, Joe Patterson, to Blessed to Play. Joe, so great for you to join us once again.
Ron, always a pleasure to talk with you. I love what you do.
Well, listen, let's talk about, first of all, what a virtue is, because many people obviously have heard the word, but they don't really know how it's defined. So most simply, what is a virtue?
Well, it is more than just a word with a positive connotation, right? So I think as we talk about it, it's that which allows life to be easier and better, right? When you bring it into the religious context, of course, it has to do with morality as well. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be something that we practice over and over so that it becomes part of who we are. And fundamentally, it allows us to operate in a much better way.
So let's talk about why you started this program in the first place, because I know athletics could be used for the good and maybe for the bad as well, depending on the approach. But what gave you the motivation to start this course on athletics and the virtues?
Well, I think you touched on it, right, that athletics can be directed towards that which is not good. And there's a lot of confusion out there within athletics, I think, as to what is the purpose. Mm-hmm. There's so much that is framed as to what someone can get out of athletics rather than what someone can put into the team. So I think there's so many vices, if we can use that term, that are inherent to this competitive structure that need to be intentionally combated. And so what motivated me, frankly, was to try to help facilitate others. I've been doing this now for 28 years, and it wasn't natural to me out the gate. I didn't have the tools to combat what it seems to be very, very inherent to athletics.
Now, as the head coach at Ave Maria, I know you're on your schedule. You have like 2 Division I schools, so it's a very competitive environment. So we're not talking about something that's very sappy, but when you put in effort, toughness, and love, I mean, they might be mutually exclusive. I don't know, but how do you integrate these 3 concepts into your coaching approach?
Great. Yeah, I think that they're all choices, right? That effort is a choice. Toughness is a choice. Love is a choice. You talk about playing a competitive schedule. Like we have no chance if we don't give 100% effort 100% of time, right? And the thing about that is that's key to life. That's not simply key to athletics or key to football. It's key to athletic. The idea that it's a life that we're given 100% effort in all facets, right? And you mentioned toughness, right? This is where happiness lies, right? It is a frame of reference, right? You eliminate the negative and embrace the positive. It's just how you view life. Do you see things as impediments or do you see them as challenges? Do you avoid adversity or do you attack adversity and love, right? Obviously that's underlies everything, right? We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Our creator came into this world to tell us how to be happy. So let's follow direction, right? And so effort, toughness, love, that's going to be the bedrock, I think, to any successful athletic program that is going to try to frame itself in virtue.
Blessed to Play Ron Meyer, joined today by Joe Patterson, Vice President, Director of Athletics, and also the head football coach as well for the Gyrenes, Ave Maria University. Not far from Naples, so he's in a good part of the country, especially when the East Coast is getting socked. Joe is basking in the sunshine. So, Joe, let's talk about the virtue of humility, because I think when we see professional athletics, I mean, it is an entertainment industry, so there's going to be a form of showmanship. But humility is not really thinking less of ourselves, is it?
No, humility is really knowing who we are, truly who we are, and what is in front of us, right? Like humility allows us to be open to coaching, and allows the coach to exercise patience, even, right? Like humility frames all the other virtues, and humility fundamentally allows us to have a better chance of victory, right? Like the idea that if you are humble, you're more likely to understand why you had something that went the wrong way, right? It allows you to recover from failures much more quickly. It allows you to take ownership of not only your failures, but also your teammates' success, right? That to recognize that and to see ownership in that. And the idea here is that each one of these elements feeds upon another, so that ultimately you're going to have a chance to be more victorious, more competitive.
So, Joe, practically speaking, as a coach, when you have a athlete coming in who is a big stud in high school and could be overconfident, but you don't want to take the confidence away, obviously, from a player. But how do you teach a player who's coming in and believing himself and likes to show himself off, so to speak, what the virtue of humility should be like?
Yeah, you make a great point, right? Humility is not at odds with self-esteem. I think that humility, if we are humble, then we are going to be free from embarrassment, right? Fear, or at least free from the fear of embarrassment, right? This idea that we're not going to let the result define who we are. And study after study, you're involved in sports. Study after study show that self-confidence is one of the greatest ingredients to success. And so if we can detach ourselves from this fear of embarrassment, we're going to be able to untap the potential. And that's where humility, I think, is really easy to sell to that person who comes in with that frame of reference. And you mentioned the point about entertainment and all of that. But I think the thing that motivates all of us, I think, is the idea that we are giving value to something. So framing this in the sense that humility is going to allow us to recognize where we can give value is going to allow us to feel more valuable. And I think everybody is wired that way if we just talk about it that way.
Yes, indeed. And when you tap in that humble spirit, also is engaging. It also builds a sense of example to the other teammates, in this case, who would see your example of what it means to be a humble athlete. Now, Joe, the virtue of charity, that's an interesting one when you're intertwining that with athletics. But, charity at its essence is giving of oneself, or even materialistically, you could be giving as well. But how does that apply to the modern day athlete?
I mean, you hit it right. This one's not natural to talk about, or not natural to see, because athletics, if nothing else, it's a zero-sum game, right? There is a winner and there is a loser, all right? There is either you're on the field or you're a backup, right? Like you are in direct competition at all times. So charity is one that really you have to focus on because of that. And so when you talk about a charitable spirit, we're talking about like being forgiving of flaws, right? That we're not going to be rooting for someone to fail, right? If we're talking about a teammate, right? That when a wrong happens to us, that charitable spirit will allow us to press on beyond that. I mean, as you know, Ron, like the most powerful thing we can do as a human being is to forgive, right? It frees us from the wrong, but not simply because it frees the other person from the wrong, but it frees us from the wrong so that we can move on. And athletics is a lesson in moving on, right? Being able to move on to the next. And I think that charitable spirit is essential to that.
Bless the player, Ron Meyer. Once again, we're chatting with Joe Patterson, Vice President, Director of Athletics at Ave Maria University. He also is the head coach of their football team, and he's right in the midst now of getting ready for his team to start their schedule. So I know it's a busy time of year for Joe, so we're thankful that he could join us and talk about his course, his online course, Athletics and Virtue. And Joe, when we talk about generosity, it's that act of giving, and I think that probably could go hand in hand with charity to a certain extent. But why don't you talk what it means to have a generous spirit as an athlete?
Well, I think it helps to frame it as what it's not, right? So the vice that we're talking about is greed, right? Whether it be this desire for the college scholarship to the point that it pits one teammate against another, or a parent against the coach for playing time, or whatever the case may be. There's so much that can creep in there because of this idea that athletics can be this zero-sum game. Mm-hmm. So the generosity is really reframing the whole focus. It's no longer what can this sport do for me. It is now what can I do for my team, right? And this goes back to just what we mentioned previously, because these virtues do overlap to some degree, right? This idea of giving value, right? And as counterintuitive as it may be, that is where we're going to feel the most valuable. And the generous spirit, I think we all know, that everyone takes a step forward with that generosity, right? You get past that pettiness of selfishness, you get past that pettiness of envy, right? And so now, especially if the culture of the team is oriented that direction, we're all capable of so much more with that generous spirit.
Yes, indeed. And I wanted to, with generous spirit too, when you have all the, social media, of course, there's all these messages coming to athletes right at their fingertips instantaneously. Do you find as a coach you have to offset some of these non-generous messages and bring your athletes back to a spectrum of generosity?
Yeah, it has to be intentional, because I would say that greed not only is excused in athletics, I would say that greed is expected, right? That there is this idea that, what is there for you in this, right? Mm-hmm. And that is the messaging that is constant, right? And we see it at the pro level, but we see it all the way through. And to really talk about this in the sense that no, that is not the expectation, mm-hmm. right? That has become the expectation if we listen to the world and allow this confusion to permeate into that which should be oriented outside of ourselves, right? So yeah, it's intentional. Do you ask them for who they're following and all of that? No, you just keep making the case, because this is like athletics too, in the sense that it's practice, right? And mm-hmm. you have to repeat and give evidence, right? Just like someone's going to buy into your coaching strategy if they become better, right? You just continue to give evidence as to how this is leading to something good. And now it has a chance to become not just a choice, but it becomes a habit, right? So it becomes who we are and how we approach things.
Yeah, it's definitely a refreshing model to approaching sports, and it doesn't have that utilitarian mindset. So I'm sure what you're saying, these athletes are learning virtue, which is the act of doing good, or the habit of doing good. All right, we'll continue our discussion with Joe Patterson. He's the head football coach at Ave Maria University. We're talking about his course, Athletics and the Virtues, when Blessed to Play returns after this.
Everybody wants to change things in their lives to help us find that something more we're all looking for. And so often we change exterior things as we strive to fix our lives. We change our jobs, majors, houses, outfits, online profiles, noses. And all that can be okay. But no matter how many surface changes you make, at the end of the day, you're still you. And so often, you're still looking for that something more. Jesus said, I came so that they might have life and have it to the full. That's what we're made for. That's what we're looking for. I've heard it said that Jesus didn't just come to make bad people good, he came to make dead people alive. And that's the kind of change that only he can bring about in us. New life for our souls. If you really want to change, invite Jesus into your life. And come back to church if you've been away for a while. you'll be amazed at how much else changes for the better. This is Chris Stefanik from reallifecatholic.com.
On the next Beacon of Truth, special guest Nick Della Torre and Soulful Psalm 1.
I'm Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, and I invite you to join me for Beacon of Truth.
Welcome back to Blessed to Play. Ron Meyer joined today by Joe Patterson. He's the Vice President, Director of Athletics, and also the head football coach at Ave Maria University in Ave Maria, Florida. And like I mentioned in the first part of the show, Joe's getting ready for the 2024 campaign and has a few Division I schools on his schedule. So very competitive environment there in football. And he's talking about athletics and virtue. In fact, this means so much to Joe that he has an online course, which we're going to direct you to at the end of the show. But I want to pick up on some of these virtues, Joe. And this one, I don't think many head football coaches, well, I shouldn't say that. I haven't heard, I should say, a head football coach talk about the virtue of piety when it comes to athletics. Why don't you touch on that?
Well, yeah. So we talk about being intentional about these things. This one really requires intentionality because athletics can just consume time and energy in such a manner, especially if it's a true passion of the athlete or the coach. And so really we're talking about combating sloth, not physical sloth, but spiritual sloth, right? The idea that we are going to be intentional, set aside time, set aside energy for this. And then the great thing about piety, I mean, as you know, like, this is where teammates really can be helpful, right? Because athletics naturally incline us to be religious, right? Whether it's the idea of gaining more confidence through prayer or emotional, psychological support through prayer and relationship with Christ, right? The spirit of perseverance, right? All this can come through active prayer life. But to have that within the context of a team that believes that, and a team that prioritizes that, I think that is the, I don't want to say the secret sauce because it's not secret, right? This to bring the Holy Spirit into the team setting and be very intentional about it, and it gives license to everyone on the team to be open about this and to go forward as brothers and as sisters in Christ.
Now, you're obviously coaching at a Catholic institution, but not all of your players are Catholic. So talking about this virtue of piety, you're inviting and you incorporate a prayer community, if you will, amongst the team.
Yeah, it's an invitation for sure, right? So we pray before and after every practice. We're going to have a team. We had a team retreat. One of our former players is fifth-year seminarian, so he came down and did a retreat for the team. So you have, and as you would probably guess, you have 7 or 8 daily masses a day here at the university. You have access to all the sacramental life, 24/7 adoration. So it's just part of the fabric of who we are. So there is always this invitation, right? And we are all at different points in our walk with Christ. And like I gain a great amount of spiritual fruit from being a part of this, and so the idea that it's just going to be part of who we are, and then as individuals we're going to pursue it in our own manner, and as God continues to bring us along.
Yeah. Well, Joe, let's move on to another virtue, and this one probably is the most challenging for not athletes but men in general in sports because of what we're bombarded with in modern day culture, and that's the virtue of chastity, because there's a lot of messages out there that are detracting from a quote unquote chaste life. But to incorporate that in your athletic program and to talk about that openly, how do you go about that?
Well, athletics is about conquest, right? It's about winning, right? And as you alluded to, right, so much right now is having that permeate into the sexual realm, right? And so chastity is changing it from this idea of conquest to the idea of protector, right? That we are protecting the soul of that other person, right? we practice as athletes and as coaches discipline everywhere else in our life, right, and we know that discipline allows us to be better, right, and we know that happiness in life is connected to who we choose as a spouse, right? There's study after study that show that, right? So we should practice as if that's the important thing, right? And that requires strategies, right? You're going to give strategies to the athletes. You're going to give strategies to your fellow coaches. And the first, of course, is prayer, right? This idea that if you're praying in front of Jesus Christ, it's going to be tough to go then treat that other child of God not as a child of God, right? Then another strategy is just identifying temptations and avoiding them, right? Making certain that the person that you're dating has the same views on chastity as you do. And then there's, of course, going back to the team saying that this accountability, this expectation of accountability, right? Too much of this athletic world expects and excuses lustful behavior, right? And so changing that, where the expectation is contrary to that we're going to be protectors, that we're going to practice that discipline because we want to be happy, right? That's critical.
And I think you could tie in the virtue of temperance with that. You know, I've heard these saying about delayed gratification, but temperance is such a big part of playing sports. I mean, you have to be disciplined. You can't give in to every impulse to be a successful athlete. And you also have to discipline your life accordingly, whether it be on the nutritional side, the practice side, even the mental game as well. But just talk about that virtue of temperance and how that intertwines with that as well.
Yes, great. You mentioned delayed gratification, which, of course, gets us into the realm of patience as well. But temperance is such a big part of it, because if we can't control ourselves, we cannot control our lives, right? And when you frame it, that's a fundamental truth, right? But then you layer onto it, what's its application in a team setting as you go into competition, right? It's going to allow you to endeavor to do something that your opponent might not be able to, right? Because you have practiced this discipline in a manner, right? There is this idea that bigger is better in so many things in athletics, right? But the idea that we can restrain ourselves so that we can give ourselves fully in another capacity, that self-sacrifice, all these other things that come into this, temperance is key, right? How else are you going to endeavor to get through the pain and the suffering that's going to come with any athletic endeavor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed, for sure. And you know what? I'm thinking about you as a coach, as putting myself in your shoes. I mean, Herm Edwards said, right, you play to win the game. So obviously you want to win the game. But Joe, everything you have talked about, there's so much more in the reason why you're a head coach and what you're trying to accomplish in the building of these men.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked before. Like, I didn't play college athletics, and anybody who saw me would know that I didn't play college athletics, right? But the idea and why I got into this, I mean, this was back, when I was 22 years old, was the idea that this is where life is, right? This is a training ground for life. Mm-hmm. Just like you're not going to be a father and businessman, you got to be both, right? You're not going to be a student athlete. You got to be both, right? And then you weave into the spiritual side, right? And now this is what we're talking about is, yeah, the scoreboard is important. It's a great motivator, right? We'll be judged by that. That's going to be captured on the internet, on our website forever, right? Like this stuff doesn't go away, but that doesn't define who we are. But these virtues that allow the scoreboard to turn in our favor, right? That's what's going to allow us to win life. And by win life, what does that mean? Well, obviously to end up in heaven, right? But even during this life, to be happier than we would otherwise be. And that, I think, is the true value of sport.
Yeah, and pursuing the virtues in sports just might be that secret sauce. Joe, we have a little bit over 2 minutes remaining, but I want to ask you, you designed this course. What do you hope that the person will get out of it or come to understand through taking part in the Pursuit of Wisdom course?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of so-called professional development during my days. I probably met with 300 to 400 different coaches and done clinics and things of that nature. And my thought each time I did that was, can I get one thing out of this?
Mm-hmm.
If I can get one thing out of this, and that 30, 40 minutes was worth it. So what do I hope that someone gets out of this? I hope they get one thing, right? Hopefully it's more than that, but definitely the expectations are going to get one thing that's going to allow them to either frame something in their own lives or frame it as they talk to others, right? Because so much of this is just having the words, right? And to have the confidence, right? And to understand that this leads to that and that leads to this. So if they can, and that's the thing about the course, is it's broken into these segments that are very easily digestible in single sittings. So I would encourage them to come check it out.
And to grow with Joe, you go to www.thepursuitofwisdom.org, and you could take his course, Athletics and Virtues, and come to a greater understanding on the true meaning of sports and also the true meaning of oneself. Joe, thanks so much for the time. I know it's a busy time of the year for you, but I do appreciate you taking a few moments to talk about athletics and virtue, and I hope some of our listeners could take something good away from it and also take the course as well. Thank you.
Ron, likewise, I appreciate so much what you do.
Hey, Blessed to Play fans, check us out on the web at blessedtoplay.com. That's blessed2play.com. You can like us on Facebook. Hit us up on the platform X at Blessed to Play. For Joe Patterson, I'm Ron Meyer. We'll catch you next time right here on Blessed to Play.
You've been listening to Blessed to Play with host Ron Meyer on the EWTN Global Catholic Network. If you have a question or comment about today's show, feel free to email us at info@blessedtoplay.com. That's blessed, 2, play.com. You can also connect with the show on the web at www.blessedtoplay.com. Again, that's blessed, 2, play.com. Join us again next time for Blessed to Play on the EWTN Global Catholic Network.